All right, hey, we're live finally on Helping the Brave. A little technical issues today, but we're here. And today I introduce because I'm having my guest on today, which is Dr. Jeff Spencer. Thanks for being here today, Dr. Jeff.
My pleasure. Thanks.
The other host is Mohawk Matt Denny. Thanks for being here today, Mohawk.
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to get into before we get you on there, Jeff. I'm sorry. I know you instead of calling you Dr. Jeff.
Jeff is for KU, whatever. It's all good. Thanks.
For all means, just don't call me late for dinner, as you can tell. Somebody asked me today, why am I doing this, right? And I had to explain to them, sorry, I've got to figure out which email is making that noise. I wanted to bring that up again. Why am I doing this? And I was trying to get a clip from John Rambo says it the best, right? If you ever watched any of his movies, Sly Stallone's movies, in the Rambo, he talks about what does he want. And basically he says, I want what they want. And every other guy who came over here and spilt his guts and gave everything he had is for our country to love us as much as we love it. Mm. And I think one of the things that we run into is that's what we do when we sign on the dotted line. We're here for our country. And sometimes we don't feel that that country is here for us as veterans. And the reason I'm doing this is to be here for those veterans who feel that way, and to help them through transition. Either it's out of the military or later on in life, if you want to start a business, that's why I'm here for you. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I started that fasting, and by the way, I'm down 16 pounds now. And basically, so I was having breakfast at 10 o'clock, and then I finished, and my stepdad came in, and he sat down. We started talking, and I have never talked to him about his service, right? And I explained it to him. He knew I was doing a radio show. He saw that I was doing this other podcast, and I said, well, I have this new thing I'm doing. It's called Helping the Brave, and the reason I'm doing it is this. And then we started talking about his Vietnam service, which I didn't know he had a Purple Heart. These are things that older veterans just never talk about, right? They just don't bring that stuff up. That's their personal stuff. They don't ask for help. They don't, all this other stuff. So he was telling me his service. And then I found out that my, what we called Norman, which was my step grandfather, he was in World War II, and he talked about, he had the same thing, and he helped him to go to get disability through the VA later in life. I'm talking 40 years after it all happened. Rick, who is my stepdad, he won't even go to the VA to get help because he's like, I have enough money right now. I don't need any more. I'm good. But I think everybody needs help, and that's why I'm here. So I hope that I explained that well. And if I didn't, maybe one of you two can explain it for me.
You explained it very well. And I think we can get Kristen in here now. Kristen, can you hear us? Maybe not.
I see this. I guess not.
Go ahead and talk if you can hear you. If not, we're going to kick you out again.
It's been nice having you here, Kristen.
Yeah.
Yes. In Texas, I guess it's hard to get that fixed.
Yep. Having issues. But I'm excited because Dr. Jeff, Ed talks about you all the time, and I'm with the Steve Sims community, and a lot of people, I seem to be the only person that doesn't know who Jeff Spencer is.
Well, now's the time.
Well, and if you want, I can read his bio, because you sent a bio and I explain it. I can read it. Dr. Jeff Spencer, serial success, performance visionary, and legendary cornerman coach, and has helped athletes win over 40 gold medals, and executives build iconic businesses, and through leaders catapult to the top of their field. So I don't read very well. And he's using his champion roadmap process. You have helped. Has he also been in Forbes, Huffington Post, and worked with Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong, Nike, Hitachi, Bulletproof, and his proudest achievement, which you talked about on my podcast, was his adopted daughter. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that with me when on the other end. You can share it here too. But one of the reasons I wanted you to be here was because of when we talked before. You talked about you had given a speech. I think it was at Fort Hood. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And what was that speech you gave there?
Yeah, I actually went in with some other civilians that have a sweet spot for the military, with just the deepest amount of appreciation for everything that they do for us. And it was really like we have this culture that's within the military itself that's tight. It has to be tight, but the civilian world is a bit different. So we went in there with the idea of let's have a preview and a conversation about what transitioning from military life to civilian life is actually like, to prepare them for that which is inevitable. One of the best experiences of my entire life, for sure.
That's incredible. That's so powerful. And
I loved it.
oh, that's amazing. And I still work so I did my Marine time. I work for the Navy and the Marine Corps now. So being around all those people every single day. One of our co-hosts who couldn't make today, Chloe, is active duty Marine. And, so the people like you that come out to support those that are still in is very powerful. So thank you for all you do for that.
Well, it's easy to do. What's really interesting about this is that I love the name of what we're doing here, the Brave, because when I was a kid and I wanted to become an Olympian, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I actually drew an Olympic T-shirt that the Olympians get as part of their official, clothing. And I had a very simple model. I was going to work hard, never make an excuse, and I was going to be brave. I mean, those are the three things that I looked at when I was 7 that I committed to. And when I thought of this idea of brave, I thought of somebody that can stand on the bow of a boat. They can buffet the wind. They can step into things that have to go right. They're kind of fearless about executing things that are a bit challenging on the periphery. And I just always felt that was such a great word. And so, pleased that here we are hosting a podcast with that name. So thank you.
Yeah, because I think we're all brave, but a lot of us say that you're heroes. Well, we don't always feel like heroes. I mean, some of us have medals and stuff, and we still don't feel it. But we know we're brave because we'll run into danger. We won't run away from it, right? And we just feel that's what you do.
Right,
that's how you do it, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to happen. What's everybody so happy about? That's supposed to happen. Yeah, you got it.
And be here for the people who can. I don't know if you see my shirt today. Not all wounds are visible. So everybody with some, we all are dealing with some type of PTSD or have had some issues. So we want to be here for those people too. And so down the road, we're going to have additional people on talking about that stuff. So, but today I wanted to really talk about how veterans can, transition out of the military and what's some of the things that they should look out for.
Well, to me, I think the first thing is to kind of role play where you're going before you get there so that you kind of demystify what the process really is. And when you come from the structure of the military you have to make it up as you go in the civilian life. Sometimes it's a little bit startling because the hierarchy and the decision-making is quite a bit different. So I'm always a big fan of, okay, so we're here and this is where we're headed. Why don't we practice the mission before we actually get there so we know how to execute it? And I feel that there's 2 parts that are really critical to this. Is that number one, to make sure that we're really prepared to go from where we are to where we want to get to. And there's 5 parts to that. And then once we're there, there are kind of 5 basic processes that we'll be going through that we need to be mindful of so that we're not taken by surprise. So that's the performance side. So first you prepare, then you perform. That's the champion's golden rule. Do the homework and the test is easy.
Homework?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Well, I don't know about homework.
Homework?
Yeah, I heard about it. I never did it, but I heard about it. Yeah.
I thought that's what brothers were for, to pay them to do it.
Yeah, friends. That's what friends are for, sort of share the load. No one wins alone, so to speak. But gosh, let me just kind of share with you, if I may, what the 5 different steps to preparation are. And when we talk about preparation, we're talking about let's get ready before we step onto the field. And one of the things that the Olympians do, I mean, that was my space, is that you make sure that you're properly prepared before you step onto the field as much as possible, or at least enough ready to step onto the field like responsibly. So there are 5 different things that I think are really important to consider in advance of going into the civilian world. That's number 1. And that's the whole concept of clarity, being really clear on what the goals are that you would like to achieve in the civilian world. Because when we have explicit clarity on what the goals are, then our anxiety drops and our confidence increases. And we need to have that confidence when we step off the bus into the civilian world. And why clarity is important is that it gives us a very special type of focus. I call it goal focus or GOCUS. And that's where we can have hyper focus on the things that have to go right to advance the processes towards completion, but while simultaneously having a peripheral awareness of the things that are going on around us. And why that's important, that peripheral vision, is that there may be opportunities that show up that can take us to a bigger, better, faster that we may not see initially, but they may be there. So that's a gift. It also shows us blind sides that may be starting to form, that if not pruned out of the system, it may prematurely and unnecessarily take us out of the game. And that's the importance of making sure that we have explicit clarity. And I also want to say that let's make sure that we have the right goal. There's all sorts of goals. There's big, hairy, audacious goals. There's moonshots. There's average goals. There are smart goals. But I think the most important goal is to have the right goal, which we can talk about in a little bit here if you'd like.
Well, and before we go on, Jeff, that's
Sure.
actually, we got a question here from Lindy. She says, I struggle with breaking down big goals into small goals. What are ways to do that?
Yeah, well, let's sort of take, when you go into action, while you think about it, it's okay. But then when you think about going live, you get sweaty palms, your heart starts to race, your pupils dilate like, oh my God, I'm actually going live with this. So while first of all, if we have the right goal, then it's a lot easier. I think a lot of times people set too big a goals first because people tell them, well, you got to go for the biggest, baddest first. I think, well, let's go for something that's appropriate with our current level of goal achievement skills, knowing that goal setting is not goal achievement. They're two different things. And sometimes people think, well, if I get the right goal, then somehow everything magically knows what to do to fill itself to put me in the winner's circle. And it's not like that. Right goal and then having the skills to execute it, to manifest it are two different things here. So how do we know that we have the right steps? Number one is that with whatever goal it is, and I'm going to suggest there's no dishonor in doing a smaller goal first to make sure that you know the process before you kind of go too big and find yourself in a difficult situation. So once we have the right goal, then we create the steps to the goal. And the question is, what's the distance between the different steps that have to go right to get us there? How do we know that? Well, it's how we feel. Because when we look at the plan in our mind, we should be able to see where our starting point is and say, yes, I'm ready. I'm at that starting point. And then step number one, the first step out, it should be a target that we can see that we can actually achieve based on our current state of readiness, our intellectual knowledge, our resources, our financing, et cetera. If we can't really see it, then it's probably too much of a reach, and we need to pull it back in just a little bit closer where our anxiety drops, and then we start to have a belief that we can actually do it. So the key here is let's make sure that we can actually do the step. We don't want to race too fast with too big of steps because we don't want to trip and fall, especially right out of the gate. Because if we trip out of the gate, then we may not believe that we have the right goal. We may not believe that we're capable of it. So the first step that we take carries a really important psychological part to the whole process. It's got to be doable. It's got to be achievable. And once we achieve it, then we kind of look at our next step and we say, well, is the next step that we proposed really the right step now, or do I need to draw a little bit closer now that I have a little bit more information from the first step? And then we kind of find that distance, and then that becomes like the second target. So it's really an internal check. Do I really believe that I can do this based upon the evidence of what I told myself? And if the answer is no, then it's probably better. We want to kind of draw it in a little bit closer, make the step a little bit less aggressive. And that way our anxiety is low. We conserve energy. When our anxiety is low, then our creativity is at peak. That's where we can execute the steps most accurately. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's excellent.
And Matt, thanks for putting that on the screen. Like when he says the different things, I appreciate that. I didn't have to write it down. Yeah, it helps out a lot.
Got it.
Next step.
We were going,
So the next step in preparation, remember, we haven't even started pursuing the goal yet. We're just sort of getting ready to do it. And so the second step is motive, is to ask ourselves, well, why am I actually doing this? Because when we look at the reasons why we're doing it, and we have a connection with that, like an emotional connection, what that does, that increases our drive. And we have to kind of be honest about it, is that with any aspirational goal, we need to make sure that we have enough drive to be able to execute the steps and stay in the game when things may get, difficult. We have to make sure that we have drive, and our drive is directly related to the motives. So for example, a friend of mine in the 2008 financial crisis, he kind of lost his job, so to speak, but he had a side hustle of building these hot rod cars. So he said, well, I'm going to build a car that's so exotic that Jay Leno's going to hear about it, and Jay's going to buy it for $500,000. And so he actually did that. He actually created a car from scratch. He took a tank motor out of an M47 patent tank, and he built a car around the tank. It was like tank engine. It was a handmade car. Jay heard about it through the magazines and actually bought it for $500,000. So my point here is that when we have the right reasons behind what we do, then it gives us the drive to see things through from concept to completed cycle of action. So we have to have the right motives. The third thing in our preparation, remember, haven't even started pursuing it yet, we're still in preparation, is to look at the impact of our goal on ourself, our credibility, our legacy, on the world around us, and also on other people. And why it's important for us to look at that is that it increases our level of purpose, or our conviction to start to pursue the goal and actually achieve the goal. Purpose is really, really, really important. So when we, again, look at the outcome for the goal achieved, that strengthens our purpose. The fourth item in preparation, haven't even started yet, is to look at mindset. Like, do I actually have the mental ability to do what it takes to execute the steps and to deal with the challenges associated with my goal, yes or no? And we have to be really honest about that, because if we're not sure about it, let's make sure that we do have the right mindset before we get started, so there's no doubt in our own mind that we can't actually do the steps that have to go right to get us there. And that takes a lot of the C word, courage, because sometimes we're going to have to do things that are contrarian to the way that most people think, but it's a necessity that we do that to get to where we want to go. So when we have the right mindset, we have the courage to do what has to go right to move things forward. And then the fifth step in preparation is resources. Do we have enough resources to get started? It's like before you do like a military operation, do we have the right amount of ammunition? Do we have the right personnel? Do we have the flashlights? Do we have the bubble gum? Do we have the Q-tips? Who's got the map? We have to make sure that we have enough. I didn't say perfect, but we just need to have enough resources there that have been vetted, that we know that have to be there to safely get started, and enough to carry us through until we can stop in and we can restock along the way. So those are the 5 steps in preparation that every prolific achiever does to be able to make sure they get started correctly. So those are those 5 steps.
I really want to appreciate you talking about this today, because not only are you helping veterans, but it looks like you're really helping a veteran's wife here.
You very much
you have it. You'll see. Throw it up there, Matt.
This happens to be my wife. He trolls all our podcasts.
Well, that's exactly right. And I so much appreciate that, because the last thing we want to do is trip out of the gate. If we can win the race, it's a tragedy, and it's unnecessary for us to trip out of the gate because we're trying to get started too quick. And let me just say something about this, if I may, is that there's a lot of mythology that surrounds goal achievement. And one of the myths is just get started and the universe will provide you with what you need to know to get to where you want to get to in least time. And that's not true either. It's like the prolific achievers know that if they go through these 5 steps and they've actually vetted the process, then we have tangible evidence that we're ready. Again, anxiety drops, confidence increases. So there's a lot of really important things to be mindful of that I actually think people through the military are actually a lot more equipped to deal with, because they do understand that, again, you don't go into battle until you're ready. So again, just an important point of the mythology here, that we don't want to get started too quickly, either fearing that we're going to get left behind or fearing that the universe won't gift us with a win because we didn't have enough faith in it. I mean, both of those are points of mythology.
Right. But you also don't want to wait too long, right? You
No,
don't want
I'm
to
not-
be
I'm not-
over prepared. I'm not saying you are saying that. I'm just throwing it out there. You don't want to,
100%.
you just, because sometimes people, they want to work on something until it's perfect. And sometimes you just, in our universe with Steve Sims, he's like, make it ugly. Just get out there. Stop worrying about it so much.
Yeah, I think there's something to say for that. And let me sort of talk to the sweet spot here, because if you start off too early and you trip and fall, you may not believe in yourself, and your confidence in self may erode. You may see, well, I am actually not capable of this. We don't want that. So what I said was, you want to be enough ready to know that you can get started responsibly, not recklessly.
No, we heard that. We heard that. That's definitely what I heard.
Perfect.
I just keep, and I forgot, I think in the beginning to explain people that you were a gold medalist or Olympic cyclist, right?
Yeah.
That's how you got started. And
Yeah.
so if you can relate this to sports at all, I mean, you get going too early, you get disqualified. Right?
Yeah, red light. Sorry,
right? You're out of here.
Yeah,
too late.
Yeah,
you're lost. It's got to be the right time at the right when it's ready. So
yeah. And let me say something about this readiness. Is that you're ready if you can't stand the idea of another rehearsal. If the other, if it's like, oh my God, I have to rehearse this one more time. I'm so nauseated. I can't deal with this. If that's the way you feel, then that's the time to press the go button. If you're anxious, you're staying up at night, it's time to go. It's time to go, but you think you need another week. You really don't need another week. It's time to push the go button. So thanks again, Ed, for the opportunity to be able to share that little nuance there.
No problem. It's great having you on. But the military really, you get to a point where you have to over and over and over drill, over practice, and you're at the point where it's like, I hear from my son, I got this stupid thing this weekend. It's like, you don't understand. They're just getting you ready to make sure so that you don't have to think about it when you need it. He's a medic, autopilot, airborne medic. It's just, you just go. It's there.
Yeah, well, I think that speaks to what Jeff was talking about earlier. Is that it depends on who you are and being enough ready. You can be enough because in the military sense, training over and over and over, you go, you're ready. It may, to anyone that doesn't understand, may think that you're not planning. They may think that you're just ready to go all the time. That's an often thing that I have. I move very quickly, but it's not because I started planning a week ago when I was told. It's because I've been planning for 20 years to be ready for that one thing. I think that's an often misconception is, people don't ever see everything that you're doing to get ready. Yeah.
I think another part of this too is that, as you're getting ready, you may still be in the military, but getting ready for the transition, right? Mm-hmm. That you have like a civilian partner to work with, that you can get used to the vocabulary, the pacing, you can have them help you vet that you're properly prepared in all these areas to safely make that step. So again, I'm a big fan, kind of alluding to what Ed said in the introduction about why am I doing this? And kind of one of my phrases to mirror that is that no one wins alone. We do need wingmen. We do need people watching our back. And I think it's a really good idea to have a safety net, just to have another pair of eyes helping us make sure that we're properly prepared, that we're not delusional about what we believe our readiness to be, by having some familiar civilian partner that would be appropriate to have, that would understand what you're doing, and a willingness to share with you the pacing, the state of readiness, so that you know that you're objectively ready to do it.
Yeah, I like that outside perspective. One of the hardest things for me when I got out was I actually got yelled at, and I didn't get written up formally, but I got scolded by my civilian boss for, we'll use the word yelling, for speaking with authority and
I'm sure it was colorful as well.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
That was, at that time of my life, that was how I was taught to communicate when someone needed to change. And I didn't know that was wrong. I was like, what do you mean we can't just take your change uniforms and go for a run? Like, you're pissing me off. Let's go for a run. And that's not allowed, apparently. And
apparently, yeah. So a little bit of nuanced coaching always goes a long way. It's not always a good idea to tell your boss to give you 50 push-ups,
Yeah, or your subordinate either.
Yeah. But back to that whole talking, that's a huge difference, because my wife will say to me, "Stop yelling." I'm not yelling. It's I'm just talking, right? I'm not. Let me show you yelling. Right? See the difference? This is just how I learned to talk from my diaphragm when I was in the military and throwing stuff out there. Right.
Not a good idea to be misunderstood when you're on the battlefield,
Right. Yeah. So I've got a question for Olympic gold medalist here. Gold, right?
I was Olympian. I was an Olympian. Not a gold medalist.
Olympian. Oh, well, sorry.
You're gold in my book.
Was.
Sorry. You thought I was good for a second. Yeah.
Hey, is this true, Matt?
I'm not yelling. It's just talking.
We're just talking.
Yeah. That's why my team has to turn my mic down all the time. But for someone that has achieved what you've achieved, and we talked about prepping for the goals, what do you do when you fail? Like, how have you found ways to cope because that can be devastating when you trip?
Well, I think it can, but most of it's preventable. It's trying to do too much too fast. That's usually what it is. And we go too fast because we're afraid if we don't keep up, we're going to get left behind. That, like, the ultimate humiliation in cycling is to get dropped or left behind. I'm sure it's the same thing in the military. You don't want to be the last guy that people have to wait for, So there's a lot of these things that motivate us, that put us in situations where the anxiety goes way up and then our timing's off. So I think that, number one, if you're not failing periodically, then you're playing life way too much in the safe zone. We have to recognize that to be true. And if you're succeeding at everything all the time, then it means that you're playing too low a game for what you're capable of. The other thing that we need to look at is that our plans that we create are our best estimations about what we perceive reality to be in the future when our plan does meet reality. And a lot of times when the plan meets reality, it's not what we think it is. So we have to make an adjustment. And it doesn't mean that we weren't prepared. It's just that life has this unforeseen side to it that we just have to accept. And the other thing about failing it is it informs us about the skills that we need to have to be able to move forward. So it's kind of really our friend. And so to go back to Ed's point, and the rule of Sims is that we don't want to over prepare, because it's actually more likely to tighten us up, where we're trying to be so perfect, our timing is screwed up and it's all off. Mm-hmm. And again, I feel like the partner idea of it is really important, because if we have somebody in our corner that's watching our back, looking at what we're doing, that has done what we're aspiring to do, that can help us with the right amount of pressure to put at any point in time, then we're more apt to perform well and achieve those things that are within our wheelhouse. The worst thing ever is to try to go out too fast and prove too much. And if we kind of go both ways, let's say you take a CEO and put him into the military, take him to the shooting range, he may have no idea what to do and just be humiliated because he's Mr. Big in the boardroom, but now he's, on the playing field, he's like useless. He may feel really embarrassed by that, and kind of vice versa. If you have somebody, a high-ranking military person that goes into the civilian world, they may actually find themselves in a situation that's a little bit awkward for them. So I feel like if we can kind of simulate that in advance so we know what to expect, then we can be a little bit more discerning in terms of what our reach initially really is.
So basically what I'm hearing is you need to get help when you're getting out. Find somebody to help you wherever you're going to, whatever you think on doing. Get that person to help you in the civilian world. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help people. So anybody can reach out to us either through Instagram, anywhere, and we will help you find that person if you need help while you're getting out. The thing if I want to go back to, though, is you said cornerman. Right. Yes. And that's part of your coaching now, that you do cornerman coaching. You want to explain that part so people understand what you mean by cornerman coaching?
Yeah, sure. Well, if we look at the types of advisors, you can have a coach that can help you in a specialist area. Like, I can teach you how to change a tire. I can teach you how to sing. Well, that's great. But what about the rest of your life here? That's only a slice of the pie. It's not the whole pie. Or you can have a mentor that has a little bit more bandwidth. So let's say I have a financial business mentor. Okay, great. Well, what about your personal life and all these other things? Well, they don't know anything about that, but yet that will affect your ability to perform in all areas. So then there's Rocky had the older guy in his corner, Mickey. And in real time, as Rocky was in the ring, fighting the battle there, Mickey, the older guy, was in his corner watching his back in real time as everything was happening. And he was telling Rocky how to move to win the round to become the perennial champion of the world. So I feel like we do need somebody in our corner that can see the entire universe of our life experience taken as a whole and can help us shape, evolve, guide, prune, and apply the totality of us that has to go right to move our life forward from where we are to where we want to get to. And generally that's someone that's older, that has a lot of life experience, that's been successful in many areas, it's helped people in many areas become successful. That's the rarest of all species, is for sure the hardest to find. But I think that's like the sage or the wise man that kind of comes out of the cave. It kind of knows how to read the situation and knows exactly what to do, all things considered, which is what I do with my clients, et cetera.
I wonder if Stallone knew how much he would change America with his movies. right? Because first it was Rambo, now
Yeah.
it's Rocky, right? I'm just saying in general, cornerman. Because for
Yeah.
me, I totally see when we were talking before about all this, I totally see where that person's very important to you.
Very much
Because
so.
a lot of us, we and I've talked to many people along the way, and you need somebody there,
Yes,
in every aspect of your life to help
that's
you
correct.
so that you don't make as many mistakes. Because there's nothing wrong with failing as
Right.
long as you learn from it. Because and don't give up. Because a lot of times people will stop right before they get successful, and we don't want
Great.
that.
That's
Right.
really common. And I think also making this huge transition from military to civilian life, we kind of do need sound counsel in every aspect of it, because civilian life, both personally and professionally, can be quite different than the military experience, And so this is probably a good time, if I can, just to kind of share what the path looks like once you get out of the service and now it's boots on the ground for real in the civilian world.
Okay.
So there are kind of 5 different things that we need to be mindful of in executing the path once we're in the civilian world to get from where we are to where we want to get to. And so the first thing is that when we have our plan, the first part of that is what I call to start. You want to start strong. So in starting strong, it's important that we have an initial target that's not too far out there. We want to have something that we can use as an indicator that we're making progress and we've safely started. So, for example, when I had aspirations of becoming an Olympian, when I won my first race locally, that wasn't the Olympics, but it was an indication that I've now actually started the process. It's for real. There's some evidence now that it's not just talk, that now this is really moving forward. And that's really psychologically important for the athlete. It's psychologically very important for a team. It's psychologically very important for anybody that's moving into a new domain, is to make sure that the first step forward is a success. So we don't want to make it too big for that reason. Then the next step that we need to be mindful of is that when we've had some initial successes, we may start to think that the goal achievement is right around the corner, where it's kind of really not. We're just getting started. And this is oftentimes where we become almost euphoric. It's almost like a honeymoon, where we think, okay, this is easy now. I got this because I've started well, but it doesn't mean that. And sometimes we end up spending too much money too early. We may get really sloppy on our policies and on our adherence to schedules. And if we do that too soon because we're too confident too early, we're living in this euphoric honeymoon state. What do we know about all honeymoons? They all wear off. So we just need to be mindful that if it's too euphoric too early, we can celebrate the initial success, but let's make sure that we really stay really tight in the execution of our plan moving forward. And that's a reality check that we have. So there's always going to be a point in time, like after every honeymoon, where there's a reality check against, oh my gosh, this is what this really is. And so when we make that adjustment, that's supposed to happen. And also to say that when the honeymoon and the initial enthusiasm of pursuing a goal starts to wear off, let's make sure that we realize that the initial enthusiasm is supposed to wear off. The exuberance that we had when we started, that's not sustainable over the entire time that it takes to get from where we are to where we want to get to. But a lot of people feel that, oh my gosh, motivation's starting to drop, or my enthusiasm is dropping, therefore bad plan, I can't do this, wrong goal. That's not true at all. Just sort of know that that's supposed to happen. This is where you have your reality check. This is where you recalibrate. This is where you re-enlist the team, so to speak, to the purpose of where we're headed and why we're doing this. Everybody see how that works? And then you kind of think, okay, well, now that we've had this reality check, everything's easy. We're going to get there. Well, that's not true either, because the next step is what I call the daily grind. We all get to a place in the pursuit of like a civilian goal where it may be kind of difficult, like we're not getting anything back close to what we think we deserve from the time and effort that we're putting into it. And then we're thinking, oh my gosh, again, wrong goal. I can't do this, too much, too fast. Well, if you got the right goal to start with, because you have a good partner that you can bounce things off of, if you know now that you're really challenging your plan against reality and you're having to adapt and adjust, like we talked about just a second ago, that daily grind place, like you just said, Ed, there's a point where some people quit just before the next step that takes it into belief. Well, that's where we need to stay in the game. And as long as we have the right plan and we're hitting the right metrics, then that means that we're building critical mass in the skill, even though it may seem hard. This is where we're really tipping ourselves as a warrior to be able to get to that point where we have that breakout moment. So we have to be really clear when things get difficult. Maybe it's supposed to get difficult while we're learning the skill. It's not a sign that we can't do it. Everybody get that? We got to be really, really, really clear on this. Otherwise, we'll talk ourselves out of something really good. And then the next step en route to the goal is that once we wake up one day and we realize we can do it because we hit that critical mass, this is where we now need to have another breakout where we name something between where we are and the goal itself that's not the goal, but if we reach it, it's an indicator that we're capable of reaching the goal. So for example, for myself, when I had the belief that I could do it, there's still a little bit of doubt, right? A little bit of doubt still. I said to myself, okay, I have to go to a national championship and I have to be either a previous Olympian or I need to be the existing national champion. Because if I can beat them, it means I can become I can become an Olympian. It's not becoming an Olympian, but it means I can do that. So while we're in process here, we need to kind of build into it certain breakouts that are named targets that if we achieve them, confirm to us that we can actually do it. And once we have that, then we've gone to believing we can do it to knowing we can do it. And then it's game over. And then the last thing, when we're getting close to achieving the goal, we don't want to rush too fast to try to get to the finish line because we may trip. And a lot of people say, well, you better get there as quickly as possible. Otherwise, somebody's going to butt in line. It doesn't work like that. We just need to make sure that we're executing the steps correctly to be able to get to and cross the finish line. Because if we don't cross the finish line and trip, then we don't win. So let's just be mindful that there are points along the journey that we may start to doubt ourselves. Like in the honeymoon phase, oh, the initial motivation is wearing off. It's supposed to. That's a sign of progress. Or, oh my gosh, I'm not getting anything back close to what I think I should be getting for my time and effort. Well, that's okay. That's the way you're supposed to feel because you're building critical mass. So you can kind of see how there are these points in the process where we can talk ourselves out of it just before it says that we succeed. That's the reason why I kind of wanted to share what the path of execution looks like between where we are and where we want to get to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So we have one question here for you, Jeff. Who would you have in your corner?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say is that I would like to have Ed in my corner. The reason why is he doesn't BS anybody on anything. He's got a wealth of experience in business himself. He's been in the military. I've been around him enough to trust what he says and know that he comes from a place of love and care. I mean, that's the type of person that I would want in my corner because I don't want to hear nice. I want to hear the real deal on where this is and what this really means. I want to know how to conserve resources. I want to know what the next step is and are we on track? And so I have several people in different areas of my life providing that level of service to me because I do know that even at my age, I can't outrun my blind spots. So I need to have a partner that can point those out to me so I avoid the preventable problems.
Isn't that our wives?
Well, no, that's the critic.
That was a joke.
That's the critic. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well,
Yes, very much. Very good.
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to say here, again, there's two parts to this. There's a preparation side. And let's make sure we're prepared enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be enough where we can't stand the idea of one more rehearsal. That means it's go time. And then when we push the go button, just kind of know that we need to get started safely. We can't trip out of the gate. We can't be too euphoric where we overspend. When we start to lose a bit of momentum, that's supposed to happen. When we're in the daily grind and it feels like, again, this is kind of tough. Where's the acknowledgement? Where's the love here? That's where you're building critical mass. But if you stay in the game, you're going to get up one day and know you can do it. If you don't misinterpret it, make sure that you have a good team together. Make sure you don't trip before the finish line, that you don't try to speed up to cross the finish line. If we just kind of remember those steps there, then we're going to be in really good shape.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Thanks for sharing today.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Easy to do. And let me, can I say one other thing here? I think what I would like to say here is really important is that, there's kind of only one of us in all of creation, meaning there's only one Mohawk Matt, there's only, one that, there's only one Jeff, there's only one of you that are watching today. And just be mindful that there are 350 billion people that have been on this planet since the first footprint, and there's only one of you. And because there's only one of you, all of us have certain gifts that we're gifted that are a sweet spot that should be what we put our time and effort into developing. And we will be manifesting some contribution to humanity based on those gifts. And here's the secret here is that the only way exponential play can happen is that if all the parts of a system are working together in harmony, because that's what creates the magic exponential play. So please never discount the value of your contribution based upon its size or what you think it to be. Sure, the captain of the team is going to get the trophy, but he couldn't have won without everybody else's contribution. So really, the grain of sand that prevented the teeter-totter from tipping over was really the critical part of this. Even though it was the smallest part, it carried equal weight to the biggest part because all the parts share a similar importance in the success of the whole. So never discount the quality of your gift and the value of your contribution by how big or how small you believe it to be, because everything that everybody does contributes to the whole equally, and never, ever, ever forget that. One more thing I'd like to say here is that you as an individual and how you show up is basically everything, because when we show up and we give the best measure of us every day to those people that we interface with, it helps them believe in humanity. It helps them believe that moving to higher ground is possible. It honors our gifts. It says thank you to the people that have helped us. And I would also close by saying that our unique contribution is really our gift to humanity. And as long as we stay sacredly committed to that, we don't find ourselves trapped in the comparison game and talking ourselves out of the value of what we're doing, then we're going to have an extraordinary life of value to us and also contribution to other people.
All right.
Powerful. I'm speechless.
Shocking.
Fantastic.
He's never speechless. Yeah.
No. No, Jeff, I think that's really powerful. The way you put it, the way you laid out the preparing for the goal, going to achieve your goal, especially for veterans as you transition. It's things that these aren't things that weren't taught. If Jeff was the one that was teaching the TAPS class when you got out for that week, we'd be so much better prepared.
Well, let's put it this way. It's been more than my pleasure, and to only say, please, also know that I feel safe because of the military. That's important to me. I need to feel like my family's protected, the values of this country are being protected. And I have a deep personal gratitude because I know the value and the commitment that it takes to do what has to go right, to be prepared for all the eventualities that could happen, and just to know how much everybody that's in the military is deeply appreciated. So thank you, Mohawk, for your service, and also to you, Ed, for making this a safer place to live and helping us be confident and certainty in our bigger future. So thank you for that.
Well, I want to thank you for being here today and in the words
Easy to
of
do.
wisdom. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. And I'll send you my fee sheet to be a cornerman. Right?
Be my honor. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for being here, Dr. Jeff.
You got it. See everybody next time.
All right.